Quebec prosecution medical experts have concluded that the bus driver accused of killing 2 children and injuring 6 others should not be held criminally responsible. Pierre Ni Saint-Amand, who is 53 years old, faces 2 second-degree murder charges, 7 other counts, including attempted murder and aggravated assault. I will never forget the day we were on air. It was February 8th of 2023 when we got the news coming in about that Laval city bus going into the St. Rose daycare. We were on air. It was live. I will never forget those hours on air. And now here in 2025, trying to get to a conclusion in that case. Let's go to Eric Sutton, who's a criminal defense attorney. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Elias.
So let's talk about this. First, being deemed not criminally responsible. Why don't you break down for our listeners on just what that means in the context of Quebec and Canadian criminal justice?
Well, it's actually not all that complicated. It means that the court will determine that you have a mental disorder that is so severe that you're unable to distinguish between right and wrong, or do not understand the natural consequences of your acts. In other words, if you don't know that if you punch someone in the mouth as hard as you can injure them, if you just don't know that because of a mental disorder, you would be considered not criminally responsible. Or using the same fact scenario, if you did that but didn't understand that it was wrong to do that, you're just incapable due to a mental disorder, you would be found non-criminally responsible.
How often does that happen? Because I think about just horrific, terrible things, and it seems like the more outrageous and extreme they are, well, the more likely someone would be deemed not criminally responsible, because what sane person would do that? So how often is this used? How often does someone get deemed not criminally responsible?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are. I really don't. It's not really a defense that's invoked that often because the consequences remain important for the offender, for the accused, and it's very resource demanding in terms of getting expert opinions from psychiatrists, and you just don't see it for lesser crimes. You will see it for major crimes if something, for instance, in this case, apparently after this tragic incident, the accused, Mr. Ni Saint-Amand, undressed himself and was virtually naked moments afterwards. It tells that he was apparently in a severe psychosis. The facts obviously supported the legal conclusions or the medical conclusions of 2 forensic psychiatrists.
So I guess what I think a lot of listeners are thinking of, we've already heard from some of the people who were victims of this affair, family members of victims as well. They're not happy, right? They want to see quote-unquote justice, right, in a situation like this. When someone is deemed not criminally responsible, I think the worry is that it also means that they'll be out living in the community and in no time. What actually happens in a case like this? What will happen to Pierre Ni Saint-Amand, and how will that play out? Will they have to remain in a hospital in some type of care and not be quote unquote out?
Well, normally because this is what's called a serious personal injury offense. Obviously, that's to put it lightly. 2 people lost their lives, 2 young children. It's terrible, and others were injured. Because of the nature of the crime, he will not be released to the community. He would be first confined in a mental hospital like L'Épinal in Montreal, which is a secure hospital. In other words, it's almost like a prison. And there would be a review board which consists of a lawyer and 2 medical practitioners who would do an analysis of his case within 45 to 90 days. And if they conclude that he's a danger to the community and he would be, or could commit a serious offense while at large, he'll remain confined for a minimum of 1 year, and then there'll be another review. Mm-hmm. In this case, the prosecution has said that they are considering having him declared a high-risk offender.
What would that mean?
Occurs,
yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just what would that mean? Go ahead. Continue.
Well, if he's deemed to be a high risk offender, that would mean that there would be a valid concern or a substantial likelihood that he would commit a serious personal injury crime if he was to be released to the community. Mm-hmm. If they come to that conclusion, then he can be confined in the hospital under more severe conditions, in the sense that he will not be able to leave the hospital unless he's escorted, and it would have to be in connection with some medical issue and treatment. But other than that, he'd be confined to the hospital at all times, and that could go on indefinitely. Uh-huh. There would be reviews. Again, it can be as much as every 2 years, and it would be the court that would ultimately decide if he can be released to the community or will remain confined. So if they come to that conclusion that he's a high risk offender, he may be confined in a mental institution for the rest of his life. Having said that, we don't know enough about his background to determine if it's likely that he would be found to be a high risk offender. Usually it's reserved for offenders who already have a criminal history of violence. If they've been already under psychiatric care but didn't follow their treatment, you look at various factors to determine whether the person is a high-risk offender. We just don't know enough about this individual at this point to determine whether the Crown is likely to succeed.
So there's a pathway, and again, medication, proper care, where this individual could be out in 2 years, or
yes.
There is,
yes. I would say so. Yes.
And
theoretically, yes. If he's following the instructions of health professionals who are supervising him and being treated, and if they conclude that his psychosis was the origins were various factors that he's addressed and understands and dealing with, and if there's a consistency in his evolution, he could see his way back into the community.
It's just if that is the case with such a heinous act, right? I'm just wondering, how bad would something have to get for that not to be an option, right? But I guess that's something that comes attached, right? If you're not criminally responsible, that goes right along with it, this ability to eventually be released.
Absolutely. If you're not criminally responsible, you're not convicted of the crime because you didn't have the mental competency to understand what you were doing. You remember that Guy Turcotte, in his first trial, was found not criminally responsible and was released, I believe, within about a year.
Yeah.
And people were extremely incensed about that. But then, after a second trial, he was convicted. His defense of a mental disorder was rejected.
Eric, listen, thanks for coming on the show today. I do appreciate it. It is interesting to get your legal analysis of these stories. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure, Elias. Thank you.
Eric Sutton, criminal defense attorney, right there.